First off, I just want to thank Matt again for having me come in and help have a nice fireside chat with Tabish. I think we're all very fortunate today to have him here. He is probably one of the most renowned digital marketers on the planet, and so I think we're going to learn a lot about a lot of things. Certainly DTC, but I think before we start that was the main topic. Although I do think he has some great clues for us on where to hide the on-sub button. Yeah, and so hopefully we'll be able to address that.
Lots of dark patterns that Derek hasn't thought about yet. So
why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself to folks, let them know your experience, let them know a little bit about you, where you're coming from.
Yeah, sure.
You can get into it.
Yeah, lovely. Hey guys, thanks everybody for being here and staying back. Appreciate it. My name is Tabish. I run an email and SMS retention marketing consent-based agency, and we work with direct-to-consumer brands, and we've been doing this for about 8 years. We're a team of 5 people right now. We only work with brands right now in the United States. Some we had in Australia, we had a couple in the European Union at some point. And then so a lot of what we do is ensuring that our brands are profitable. They have a nice retention strategy without compromising on their deliverability, because if you're not doing the right things, you're not placing in the inbox, and then your consumers are not hearing from you. And then there's obviously a fine balance between doing a lot that's important for the brand and being a consultant, being an advisor for your clients. So yeah, we've been doing that for about a little over 8 years now, actually.
Yeah, totally awesome. So I think it's really kind of cool that you came in today. I think, as just because of the timing of it, as Matt pointed out, we're coming into Thanksgiving, big deal for the United States since you work in the United States. And so, well, that's great for us. It's a now international thing of having kind of that Black Friday and Cyber Monday thing. And so I'm kind of curious what you feel, about the sentiment of coming into this holiday time and this kind of mass frenzy buying time. What is the sentiment of consumers as we come into this time?
Yeah, that's a great question. So Black Friday, Cyber Monday is obviously historically a United States thing. We always see the impact of that in Canada as well. And now globally, because everybody's seeing this e-commerce landscape more available to them, we're seeing this Black Friday, Cyber Monday approach globally, including in the European Union, including in Australia. One thing that I think underpins this year, and somewhat did last year as well, is the consumer is looking for value and bargain deals. There's a lot of pent-up demand. There's a lot of recessionary talk. Are we going to have a recession? Are we not going to have a recession? Are things that get more expensive? Should I be spending this money? So we're looking at consumers from last year into this year that want deals. Mm-hmm. And then as a brand, you have to reconcile giving a deal with ensuring that you stay profitable. Because this is a big issue that brands had last year, and now they're more aware of it this year. Because the consumer only has so much money to spend. Mm-hmm. And then so you could run into conversations about when should we start Black Friday, Cyber Monday? When should we end it? Should we do extensions? Should we do fake extensions, right? Should we send emails to the lists that haven't been engaged with us for a really long time? So we're looking at all these conversations, but fundamentally it's, how do I get the best value as a consumer from brands that I've either bought from before, or I've heard about and I want to try, but where the risk is low? So that's where we are.
Interesting. So for everybody who's like trying to package these deals, is there a rule of thumb, or is there a discount that should be given? Is there how do you balance that? How do you, if I'm going into it, you kind of get the feeling like if I'm not at some major percentage off of what I'm doing, people are going to either wait for me to lower the price later, or is there kind of a sweet spot that you know of that when you start to go through this process, you kind of go hey, I should be discounting at this level?
Yeah, that's a great question as well. Thank you. Appreciate that. The most important thing to remember is that you have to build rapport and trust with your consumers well before you come into selling season, because if this is the time you're starting to think about it, it's almost too late already. So one of the things that we do with our clients and their subscribers is we're very clear about what the offer is going to be. We're very clear about whether or not we will extend the sale. There's going to be no fake extensions. And we're very clear about whether or not the deals are going to get better on the actual day of Black Friday, Cyber Monday. So a lot of the times there's early deals, and then you make a purchase as a consumer, and all of a sudden there's another 10% off, right? And then you're kind of feeling, hey man, I kind of got cheated here, I got taken for a ride. And then so you want to be very transparent with your consumer. This is what it's going to be like. And then if you set that precedent from years before, it becomes a lot easier to build on that and continue that. And then so in terms of what the best percentage is, it comes back to profitability. We're a small agency. We don't work with huge clients. We don't have huge statistical data, but we use an ESP called Klaviyo, which is able to provide us that data, that aggregate data. And what we've understood it to be is beyond the 20 to 29% discount mark, there's diminishing marginal utility, like a significantly more a discounted product is not going to yield more amount of sales, because the consumer that has $100 to spend is still going to spend that $100. And then with your rising costs, with your logistical costs, media buying is a very nightmare scenario right now. A lot of brands are just not able to profit. They're not getting the return on ad spend. So when you're looking at profitability as well, you have to be really mindful. Sometimes some brands will offer free returns, and that eats up into profits as well, because there's consumers that are very ethical and there's consumers that will take advantage of the system. And so when you're factoring all that in, 29% is like the highest you should go, and that too I think is a lot for most of our brands. Either we don't do discounts during Black Friday because the brand is just solid and it's a great gift giving item, or it's 15%. So most brands that are doing 15% year round for this brand, it's like 15% for this week only. So that's kind of where I'd say 20 to 29%.
Gotcha. That's still pretty significant. But do you think that there's still going to be, I mean, that's a target, there's going to be profitability pressures, I should say profitability, but revenue goals, revenue objectives from the companies that are doing this? Do you think there would be a conflict in that? So of trying to maintain that and then still having pressure put back on there? Like, how do you measure like this profitability as you're talking about this, and then know like, oh my God, I'm not hitting my targets. I'm not getting where I want to be out of this thing. I got to do something more. Like, how do you balance that, like that line in the sand of 29 and kind of the way different companies measure like their results for this period?
Yeah, I think my experience with this has been that a lot of brands will measure their Black Friday, Cyber Monday sales in isolation of the entire Q4 period. And some of them will look at their entire year and say, okay, this is kind of where our shortfall is on revenue for Q4. So each brand does it differently, but what I always advise my clients and other marketers, frankly, is look at what your brand's problems are. Like, look at when you're talking to your client, are they paying more for their product, right? Are they paying more for their shipping? Are they including free shipping? And then look at what you did last year. What was your revenue? What is the trajectory for that last year? What was your trajectory this year? Where were the peaks and valleys of your revenue on your Shopify store? Take your best performing campaigns, your email campaigns, your SMS campaigns, and repurpose them, prepare them. Mm-hmm. If you're not hitting your revenue targets and you feel like there's an audience that is yet untapped in your email marketing list, then you can use those email campaigns to hit your targets. So preparation is key here, and it doesn't start in October, and we're talking about it really late. We start Black Friday, Cyber Monday preparation as early as July for most of our clients.
So a question again, and you mentioned preparing for it, and you also mentioned Klaviyo, which I think is interesting. So we just came from a conference. It's all about deliverability, and of course had the opportunity to talk to some of the Klaviyo folks and knowing their scale. I think like they're saying like they had a record of something like 2 billion messages sent on Black Friday last year. I think they're going to double it to like 4 billion messages going out, or some type of astronomical number that's going to be sent to their network. I think that it seems to me when I hear those numbers that all bets are off, meaning like just freaking flood the market with email. So is there, in your opinion, do we just like kind of toss all this deliverability stuff out the window for like this period? Do we toss relevance away? Is this just really like a feeding frenzy and just like blow the crap out of emails out of here? Or is there still a view that we actually care about that. Seems kind of based on the volume numbers we're hearing, but based on kind of building trust and confidence and relevancy, it kind of like are diametrically opposing each other for this time.
No, I don't think the two are mutually exclusive. So this increase in volume of messages sent is obviously a marketing thing as well. Like, hey, Klaviyo and ESPs need to show that they're really popular and they're sending a lot more messages. Because if you send a lot more messages, you're giving Klaviyo more revenue. You're giving Omnisend and Drip and all these guys more revenue, right? You got to take that with a grain of salt. The important thing to understand is that people, since forever, have been bombarded with marketing messages. Over and over again, you're constantly competing for eyeballs. And so there is an element of sending more email, but you have to be mindful, you have to segment. And you have to give consumers the opportunity or the choice to unsubscribe, to opt out of snooze.
I hadn't heard that.
And if you're not thinking about deliverability, then you're not really doing yourself a service, because I keep saying to the last, I'd say 8 months, I've had new brands come in, and each one of them has had a deliverability issue. They either have bots in their list, one of them bot lists, which one of Matt, my mutual friends, told me, hey, I can recognize some of these emails as spam traps. And then some of them just didn't have their DMARC policy set up. Some of them had 3 DMARC policies, and they just didn't have it right. And this goes for small brands that are just like one-person operation, brands that are doing $1 million a month in revenue. So you would absolutely have to care about deliverability. You absolutely have to care about that consumer, and the two are not mutually exclusive. So in all of our Black Friday emails, and starting November, we have in the footer, unsubscribe from all Black Friday and holiday emails. So in the minute you click that, you're not getting a single automation, you're not getting a single campaign. But you're gonna love me for this. In all of our clients' emails, the first thing we do is on the top of the email, we put an unsubscribe link. So you click to unsubscribe right on the top of the email. Because what I love is that consumers can self-regulate and choose to unsubscribe. So if they unsubscribe instead of marking emails as spam or just like becoming apathetic and not opening emails, I love that, because you are removing yourself from my list. You're telling me this is not for you, fantastic. If there's another brand that you need to use, that's great. Not every brand is going to be a fit for every consumer, right? But you're also reducing my billing. Like, I'm not paying for the profiles that I'm not selling to. And frankly, it does come down to that for a lot of brands. Hey, I'm paying $11,000, $10,000, $4,000 for the ESP. If I'm able to remove those people that are just not engaged with the brand anymore, that's fantastic. And if you're doing it for me, even better. So yeah, send more emails where it's relevant, but give the consumer the choice to opt out.
100% agree. I mean, certainly not there to torture consumers with things they don't want. But clearly, if you are amping up the volumes for this kind of holiday period, then it's even more important to make sure that they have a way to get out of that. If they are engaged, or if they're not just choosing to unsub or opt out of your mails, is there like a rule around volume, meaning the number of mails that like you should be sending on behalf of brand to try and make the most impact during this time?
Yeah, so this is a double-edged sword. There is a brand that I've recently been working with, and they're a very small brand, and they send 3 or 4 emails a week to the same segments over and over again. You can see diminishing returns, because you see the trend of the opens, the clicks, the revenue per recipient, placed order rate. And then so you have to look at those indicators. There's no static answer to this, right? The segments keep changing, right? So is there a number of emails to send? More important is, are you sending the most relevant email to that consumer at that time? So if they've just bought a product and you're sending them a sale email or another product, buy this as well, buy that as well, I would argue that that is not the best strategy. What you should be doing instead to retain that customer is send them shipping notifications as they become relevant. And then if there is an opportunity for them to become ambassadors, if there's a product that you sell that, let's say hats, right? You have different types of hats. You can have a loyalty program to retain that customer, and then you can give them points. So the relevant emails are what matter most. The other side of this is that during this Black Friday, Cyber Monday, it's the holiday period, consumer purchasing disposition changes significantly. So typically what we do is exclude people that have bought in the last 14 to 21 days from any marketing emails. But during this period, consumers tend to purchase 2 to 3 times in the same month. So we have to look at that cohort analysis as well and see if it's relevant. It's not relevant to all brands, because let's say you're selling a weighted blanket, right? How many weighted blankets can you possibly sell? One for yourself, maybe one as a gift, maybe one for your child if you're even selling that type of SKU. But if you don't do it right, that business is gonna go out of business, right? So
Absolutely. I am interested also just to kind of continue down that theme, because what we got here essentially, and Matt brought up at the beginning of this, essentially is kind of a uniqueness in this particular year, in that like Cyber Monday actually is in December. So in terms of the strategy and execution around, Black Friday, Cyber Monday, how's the things change, or what else should people be thinking about or doing? What impact does that have to people's email programs through this period, because it's kind of like a truncated time to try and between then and kind of the holiday?
yeah, and so once again, this is like the first time that I know that Cyber Monday is happening in December. Each logistics provider has their cutoff times for guaranteed delivery, and they also have volume. So what happens is, if people are placing orders, a lot of people wait until Cyber Monday to place their orders because they think they'll get the best deal then. They place their orders, there's significant load on the brand to fulfill that product. And then all of a sudden, you've got more than one UPS truck coming in to pick up that merchandise, times that by millions of businesses across the United States, possibly even Canada, that are selling so much volume. You've got a problem. Not everybody is going to receive their merchandise all the time. And so you need to be prepared for that eventuality. And then so you've got to keep in mind, through automations, you don't have to do this as an individual who's constantly monitoring. Through automations, you can see if a shipment hasn't been delivered, or if it's stalling, then you need to let your customer know that, hey, it looks like the shipment is stuck. We're going to do our best to solve this problem for you. But in case we can't get you the product on time for your gifts, then you need to be prepared to like offer them an incentive where, hey, I'm sorry, here's, we'll make it free, or here's $50 off or 50% off on your next order. We want to make it right for you. So you gotta think about these things. And the consumer is also savvy. In many ways, the consumer is savvy, because when you think about yourselves as consumers, you're like, oh yeah, I understand a lot of these things. But in many ways, consumers can't be savvy. So for those that understand that I'm ordering pretty late, might not get it, you gotta allow them that autonomy of thought. But then for those that have never shopped online before, because this happens every year, there's more and more volume of online shoppers that are first-time buyers. And I have this anecdotal data for this, but you've got to make sure that you also educate them on this potentiality. And so automations do a lot of that heavy lifting here.
Interesting. So you mentioned different kind of buyers. I know this is a slight segue from this particular conversation, but interesting incident happened here today, which I at least knew to be understanding that, for instance, I was informed by a good authority that kind of people in the like baby boomer set or late baby boomer set might not be too happy about getting emails. Matter of fact, they might have voiced their opinion about just taking them off the list. If anything comes from Gmail, we're probably just going to throw it away, or don't send me a transaction or a receipt or a bill through email. So I'm wondering kind of what you do, or what your thoughts are in terms of building trust in like the spare communities like that. So instance, how would you do things possibly differently for different demographic sets to try and do that? Or do you have, or does it matter? Or is it one size fits all? What's the best approach on that?
Yeah, I mean, building trust is at the root of getting and keeping your business. So if you're not building trust, then you're not going to stay in business. And that's just the bottom line. I've seen clients of mine go out of business because they weren't able to live up to the promises that they made, or be able to build and maintain that trust. So that is a given. That's just good business sense, right? So if you got all right, here's my train of thought here. If you've got You repeat the question. We just want to
Certainly, yeah, I was wondering, based on building trust,
trust. Yeah.
and you have different demographics, so say you have
Yeah.
someone like.
I got it. I apologize.
Back in, man. All good, it's been a long afternoon, so it's all good.
Yeah, so you talk about don't send me a receipt of my order. If your consumer who's a baby boomer or any demographic really is having a problem at that point, then you just haven't done enough to build that rapport. And then sometimes not all brands are for all consumers, and that's okay. But when somebody first interacts with your brand, comes to your website, there should be a little bit of raison d'être, like here's why we're here, here's why we exist, here are our values. If they align with their values, great. As marketers, we often do, as a matter of fact, we do across the board pop-ups or opt-in lists. But the first thing we do is when somebody opts in is fulfill the promise that we made on the pop-up. So if it's a discount or an offer, we'll fulfill that promise in the very first email. And then if it's join our list to learn more about new product drops, email exclusive offers, we're also doing an educational sort of series, an automation series. So here's who we are, here's what you can expect from us in terms of number of emails or volumes, here's the types of emails we're going to send you, here's our best sellers, another email that tells you if you haven't bought yet, because some people need proof that you're a legit business. And there's a lot of scams that happen, right? There's a lot of people pretending to be other businesses, and this happened to my clients as well. So here's proof of our customers saying this about us. And here's a link to our website so you can read more unfiltered reviews. And so our job is to build that rapport from the minute somebody lands on the website, whether they saw an ad or whether they came through a Google search or an Instagram post. And then by the time they come to that purchase, the only reason that purchase should have happened is because we've already built trust. Now, along the way, you'll browse a product, you'll say, not yet. Or you'll add it to cart, you're like, something feels a little off. And then you'll go to checkout and you'll see, oh, but there's a shipping fee that I wasn't expecting. So along the way, those relevant automations come into play. If somebody isn't purchasing, and consumers oftentimes, myself included, needs to be coaxed a little bit. I'm going to use that word very loosely.
Easy.
Listen. So one of the things is here's what our clients, customers' negative reviews say about their brand. Here is the question that customer service receives often, and we'll use that to craft an FAQ for that email. Because if you have an apprehension, I don't know what that apprehension is. I can assume based on what I've seen before that these are the things that move people to make a purchase. So then we'll do those relevant emails and put that relevant content in there to build a rapport.
I think that's all. What I'm gaining from what you're saying is that you should do everything in your power as a brand to remove any dark patterns from the equation. So that if you are putting things out, you're building trust all the way through. There's transparency, that people understand what you're doing. And if they are making a decision to do something, that they truly then understand what they're doing, what they're going to get, when they're going to get it, how it's going to work. And with that, then you should have a good process regardless of the demographic.
Yeah, absolutely. And obviously for each demographic, you need to think about the user experience and user interface and what their needs are. For somebody, let's say 18, 20, buying a hat might be, I want to look cool, but somebody who's a little older than me, who's bald, my problem is, hey, I want to make sure I don't get sunburned, I don't get like painful skin. And then so for each demographic, you need to keep that in mind. But yes, absolutely. All of this comes down to no fake and forward emails. Don't hide that unsubscribe link. Obviously, give people a choice to opt out. Make those emails relevant. And define clearly what dark pattern means, right? I mean, to your example, Rogers closes that ticket right away, or Telus closes that ticket right away, doesn't give you an option or opportunity to then follow up on that. That might also just be a customer service issue where they are forced to close the ticket in time for their performance. And that's a business problem, right? That's not necessarily a dark pattern. So you have to clearly define for yourself what that dark pattern is, but just follow common sense. As a consumer,
I had a question.
I think that.
I was, do you think due to Cyber Monday landing in December, do you think people are gonna start creeping like forwards, probably like before Thanksgiving even? And
to make purchases?
Or well, no, like brands and their promotions, do you think they will start pushing those
Oh, yeah.
earlier in the season? And do you think that's a dark pattern or do you think that's totally legit?
Okay, so this is a great question. So let me find the words for this. So a lot of brands since the last 2 years have been starting their Black Friday, Cyber Monday in the first week of November.
Yeah.
Some brands this year we had talk of October, November, December Black Friday, right? So like 3 months of Black Friday. There's marketing, there's good business sense, and then there's like kind of like building the anticipation, but then it falls flat if you do that. Because an extended sale is like a marathon, it doesn't really have the same impact. But like I said in the beginning, consumers only have so much money to spend, and every brand is fine for that $100 that a consumer has, if that, right? So if brand A starts in the first week of November, but brand B says, I'm only going to start on actual Black Friday, a lot of your consumers might have already spent their money and they don't have money to spend with you unless the caveat is unless you've got a very unique product. One of my clients sells miniature gun models which are historic in nature, and so there's no competitor to that. They don't do any sales. There's no discounts during Black Friday, Cyber Monday. There's a free gift for people that place a certain amount of orders or a certain dollar value, but there's no discounts for that. So yes, you have to start early if you're going to compete in the market. That's just the nature of it now. It's no longer Black Friday, Cyber Monday. But if you start in October, I think it's kind of silly.
Just for context, in Europe, it's barely even called Black Friday, Cyber
Yeah.
Monday anymore. It's called Black Week.
Yeah.
And which is not the best name or whatever, but it's subjective. Black Week, that starts maybe at the beginning of November, as you mentioned.
Yeah.
So it becomes there's ambiguity around it.
Yeah.
When it starts, when it ends. Oh, and it's extended for 1 or 2 weeks past Cyber Monday, right?
Yeah.
So it's diluted its own value in a sense.
Yeah.
People aren't using customer thing value cohorting, so they're just applying broadly, cannibalizing margins, all kinds of stuff going on. It's a bit of a disaster.
Yeah, that cohort analysis is such a key indicator of how well your brand is performing anyway, and how well your marketing efforts are performing. But if you are, one thing we do is if you are going after Cyber Monday, you're saying this is going to be the best deal and it's not going to get better in December. Live up to that promise that you made, right? No fake extensions. If you're going to have an extension, then or you think you might need one to cover for revenue, then don't mention that it's gonna be the last
pattern, dude.
That's dark pattern.
No more dark pattern.
Well, it could be a revenue issue. It could be well, once again, define what a dark pattern is, right? So but is it a marketing dark pattern? Yes, it is, right? But in many cases, like consumers don't really think about it. Brands don't really think about it. But when you're going into the holiday period, your Cyber Monday is done. If you still want to make a sale and call it something else, maybe a different offer, but then make sure your messaging revolves around gift giving and no longer about Cyber Monday, Black Friday, because that's one way to kind of continue your volume. The relevance of that messaging is going to be what's going to be that sale, not that additional discount, because we already spent $100.
One last thought that hit because it was actually in the title of this and I completely overlooked it, so I feel horrible. But at the end of this, we kind of talked about obviously people are engaged with the brand, but I think I am curious about re-engagement, meaning people who have kind of gone dark on the brand. Is there a different strategy that's going on to try and use this period as a way to drive re-engagement, or is it still the same? Again, all bets are off, and I'm just hitting everybody with something during this time.
Yeah, so I will admit that we like to be a little bit more liberal in our email sending during the Black Friday, Cyber Monday period. But that doesn't happen willy-nilly. It's not something that's a free-for-all, and we're just going to pull all the stops. We look at the segments of the board. So there's a certain segment that only buys when there's a discount. There's a certain segment of people that only buy during Black Friday. And if you have enough data for that brand that goes far back, then you can re-engage them with letters, which is what we do. So text-only letters. We'll try to re-engage them. We say, hey, if you don't want to receive any more marketing emails from us, unsubscribe here. And it's like bold blue hyperlink, which is something we've seen since the Netscape era, right? So you can't forget it, right? You know what that is, right? So we give people plenty of opportunity to engage, but also to opt out. And then after that, yeah, we're setting to 30-day engaged, 90 days, 180-day engagement. At one point, we will set to 365 days engaged, as long as we're able to exclude bots, because that can just kill our deliverability in one shot. We've seen this happen. One of our clients is 7,000 bot subscribers because of one of their forms. And so that can become a nightmare. But the whole process starts way early on. It doesn't happen on Black Friday, Cyber Monday. It doesn't happen in November. I would argue it should happen in July and even into August. But yes, we definitely send more liberal emails during that period for sure.
In the sense of talking about D2C here, and I love to do direct marketing for brands, not through a reseller, directly to the client. That's the best thing we could do. When you monitor the success of the Black Friday activities, what are the KPIs that you're looking at, also from a negative perspective? Because what Nick mentioned, what happens in Europe is all the folks get everything that had at least an at sign in its term will be added to the list, and regardless what they've done over the past 10 months in terms of applying best practices, doing all good things, they forget about it. They've got only dollar signs in their eyes. Everything's gonna send, and what's happened is they burn down the reputation of their domain and IP within a few days that they build up over 10 months. And I just had the anecdote of a good friend in email marketing who said, okay, and after Black Friday, I've got another 10 to 12 months to rebuild the reputation that I burned for the profit of the email marketing campaigns. So what are you educating your clients to look at, regardless from open rates, click rates, and revenue?
So using both the positive and negative KPIs
Yes.
on whether or not our emails are landing, or
Doesn't matter. So what I would love to get to know is, do you do consulting only on profitable success, or in the sense of keeping the list healthy?
Yeah, sure.
And the reputation even after Black Friday, because that's most likely burned afterwards.
The bottom line to this is good email reputation is good profitability practice. So yes, profitability is front and center, but the components of what makes up that profitability, a lot of it is deliverability. Our clients generate 30 to 45% of the revenue through email. Now, double attribution and first click aside, that's a huge number to forego on if you're messing things up. And then so we're day to day, we're looking at, before every campaign that we send, we're looking at how our Gmail reputation is now. With Yahoo giving us that feedback loop, we're able to see what problems, what emails are causing problems. And then so we're able to anticipate and plan for this well in advance. And we're looking at the domain reputation. So there's markers, right? Like your domain reputation is very volatile, fluctuating between high and medium. We're like, oh, this seems to be either a bot issue or a spam trap issue or something wrong with the list or something wrong with the way we're sending. So then we're starting to go with the process of elimination. But yes, to answer your question, we're 100% looking at deliverability first and foremost, because our performance is based on how well email and SMS sells. And so it would be a disservice to myself. It would be irresponsible of me to the client, especially when they're not sure about where the revenue is going to go, to just batch and blast 5 years worth of emails. Every year, when we try to re-engage subscribers, those that still don't re-engage, they're off the list. So we're keeping hygiene at every single step. There's no list buying. There's no server-side API apps that kind of add people to your browse ban and your add to cart abandons, which a lot of apps are doing now in Shopify. People not on your list are receiving email marketing from you because of that server-side API. I've seen one of my clients paid for this for a year. And so what we did was we broke down the by segments to see which ones were performing, and they always had a higher bounce rate. They always had a higher spam rate. Practically no revenue coming through those emails. So when we're looking at data, the data talks, common sense talks, profitability front and center, but because deliverability is what dictates that profitability. So does that kind of answer your question?
Yeah, well stated. I think we have one last question.
Yeah, I was just going to comment to that in terms of
it's not just about what you're doing and your cadence and your offers. It's also, it's the entire journey, and that starts with the sign up.
Yeah.
And so many companies and brands don't get the sign up right. And it's not just opt-in versus opt-out, or it's, confirmed opt-in. It's a preference center on confirmed opt-in to understand what it is about your brand that they're interested in. How often are they expecting to hear from you? Giving them that flexibility to actually, kind of curate for themselves what they want you to tell them. And then from there, they're more likely to be already engaging with you from the get-go.
Yeah.
And then that way, when you want to wrap up for the holidays, they're not already burned out from what you're normally doing because you've been sort of more appropriately curating how you're speaking to them. And then it's just like, oh, it's the holidays. Okay, cool. And then you're not burning anything then. You're just building.
Yeah, and that's a great point. And then there's a nuance to that as well I'd like to speak to. Smaller agencies and smaller brands sometimes can't create multiple versions of emails in the short amount of time that they have to launch a sale or to launch a product or launch an email. And then so oftentimes it becomes about, hey, this one size fits all solution, and we're going to personalize with the product modules and the recommendations and using first names because the customer's given that to us. A lot of brands don't have the developer resources or agencies to build preference centers because for some reason, the ESPs we've worked with, the preference centers don't work really well. And then so we're custom coding all that. So if you're a big brand, you've got an in-house team or an agency that you can pay that also knows how to do it, because not all agencies know how to do all the stuff that brands think that they can do. Right? We get clients from big agencies all the time. And then when you look at their work, you're like, oh well, we definitely do better than this. So the caveat is do what you can with the resources that you have and make it relevant to the consumer as best as you can. Might not have a preference center, but if you have that data that you're collecting about what products they're viewing or what categories they're viewing, then use that to cater the messages that you're sending to them, right? So double-edged sword, right? But absolutely, give your consumers what they want.
Very good. Well, let's appreciate a big round of applause for Tabish for the fantastic.
And